Welcome to Pasadena Monthly. I'm your host, Justin Chapman. Happy Black History Month. After taking a look at what's been going on in Pasadena this past month, we'll speak with our guest, Joel Sheldon, longtime owner of Vroman's Bookstore, which is going up for sale. But before we get started, let's check out these Pasadena media news breaks.
Leadership Pasadena is celebrating its 25th anniversary of service in the community. In January, the organization welcomed its class of 2024, a group of diverse professionals with the goal of making a positive impact in Pasadena. To learn more about the organization and learn how you can get involved, go to leadershipppasadena.org. Mayor Victor Gordo is scheduled to deliver the 2024 Pasadena State of the City Address on Thursday, February 29th at Caltech's Cahill Center for Astronomy and Astrophysics. The event, themed Leaping into the Future, will highlight some of the city's current challenges and accomplishments, as well as future prospects. Doors open to the public at 6:30 p.m. Free on-site parking will be available. Tune in to Pasadena Media's KPAS channel to watch live coverage of the Mayor's State of the City Address. For more information, visit cityofpasadena.net.
Let's turn next to our lightning round of news updates. 1. Pasadena Water and Power Department General Manager Sidney Jackson announced that he is resigning from his position after just 15 months because he has accepted a job as CEO of Connexus Energy in Minnesota, which he will begin March 11th. City Manager Miguel Marquez appointed Assistant City Manager David Reyes as the Acting General Manager of Water and Power, and Finance Director Matthew Hawksworth as Acting Assistant City Manager. The city will soon launch a recruitment process to find a permanent Water and Power General Manager. Jackson oversaw the department's integrated resource plan, which lays out scenarios for achieving the City Council's mandate of 100% carbon-free electricity by 2030. By June, the department must submit an updated plan after activists said the council agreed that the IRP doesn't go far enough in meeting that mandate. 2. On that note, the council's Municipal Services Committee unanimously approved a $512 million 20-year contract with Southern California Public Power Authority for solar, photovoltaic energy, and battery energy storage from Bonanza Solar LLC, which is based in Clark County, Nevada. The contract, which will start in 2028, is forecast to achieve 94% carbon-free energy supply. Also, members of the Climate Change Action Coalition Pasadena 100 led a meditative march from Pasadena Water and Power's offices to City Hall on the first anniversary of the city's climate emergency declaration. The march was a symbolic call to action and reaffirmation of Pasadena's commitment to environmental sustainability. 3. JPL announced that it is laying off 530 employees and 40 contractors, about 8% of the lab's workforce. A hiring freeze and cost-cutting effort was already underway as JPL waits to see how much of the budget will be appropriated by Congress for its Mars sample return mission, which aims to bring pieces of Mars back to Earth for analysis. NASA told JPL to expect a 63% decrease in that mission's budget compared to the previous year. Long Beach hosted a job fair this week for those who were laid off. Also, a rotor on JPL's Ingenuity, the helicopter that made history on Mars by conducting the first powered flight on another planet, suffered damage and is thus no longer able to fly. 4. A report by the LA County Commission on Human Relations, which analyzed arrest and booking data from the Pasadena, Glendale, and South Pasadena police departments, show that Black and Latino arrest rates are much higher than those for whites and Asians. Pasadena Police Chief Eugene Harris responded by saying, quote, Pasadena Police Department has an ongoing commitment to responsiveness regardless of race, and we will continue to respond to any and all calls for service, end quote. Also, Pasadena's Community Police Oversight Commission made a recommendation to City Council to amend the city's charter to change the current independent police auditor to the independent police monitor in order to enhance police oversight. The commission will also host 2 forums on pretext stops, which are traffic stops by police officers for minor violations, with the actual intention being to investigate a separate, unrelated crime or check out the driver. The first will be held on March 7th at Pasadena City College. and the second will be held March 14th at the Robinson Center. Independent Police Auditor Dr. Richard Rosenthal will attend the March 7th forum. 5. In a historic vote, more than 2,000 graduate and postdoctoral researchers at Caltech voted in favor of joining the United Auto Workers Union, which represents over 100,000 academic workers at more than 40 universities and colleges nationwide. Graduate students voted 76.5% in favor, and postdoc researchers voted 82.8% in favor. It was the first time both groups voted simultaneously to unionize at Caltech. Also, the PCC Management Association and PCC's Academic Senate both submitted votes of no confidence in PCC's search process for a new superintendent/president. 6. This week, the city's new Charter Study Task Force discussed possible amendments to the charter regarding the timing of the mayoral election. Currently, city council members representing districts 1, 2, 4, and 6 are up for re-election at the same time as the mayor and must give up their seats in order to run for mayor, while council members representing districts 3, 5, and 7 can run for mayor without giving up their council seats since they are not up for re-election that cycle. The task force also discussed council term limits and will discuss council vacancies, the vice mayoral appointment, and council member compensation. Some residents also want the task force to discuss campaign finance contribution limits. Meanwhile, 3 charter amendment measures, R, S, and T, will be on the March 5th primary election ballot that could make minor and technical changes to the charter. 7. The Pasadena Unified School District's Board of Education voted to cancel a 5-year lease with the City of Pasadena at the Jefferson Elementary campus, which will remove city programs and city library books in order to temporarily relocate students there from Longfellow Elementary School while improvements are made. 8. Speaking of PUSD, the federal grand jury filed a 28-count indictment against former PUSD Superintendent Percy Clark and 2 others for wire fraud and money laundering charges in Indiana, where Percy Clark served as superintendent after leaving Pasadena. If convicted, Clark faces between 10 and 20 years in federal prison for each of the 28 counts. The indictment alleges that Clark engaged in a conspiracy to defraud the Indiana Department of Education between 2016 and 2018 by manipulating enrollment numbers at 2 charter schools in order to receive more funding from the state of Indiana, to the tune of $44 million. Back in 2005, when Clark was still PUSD superintendent and I was on the Altadena Town Council, PUSD was closing down well-performing Altadena schools, which caused me to launch an effort backed by the Town Council to explore the feasibility and desirability of Altadena seceding from PUSD and creating its own school district, which launched a community-wide conversation about the town's governance and education system. The PUSD school board voted Clark out as superintendent in 2006 after he plagiarized the column for the Pasadena Week. 9. The city of Pasadena and the One Arroyo Foundation announced the acquisition of a $500,000 grant from California State Parks for the One Arroyo Trail Critical Linkages Project, which aims to enhance the Arroyo Seco experience by restoring approximately 3.5 miles of existing multi-use trail. And 10. The city is monitoring potential changes in landline services proposed by AT&T. An AT&T spokesperson told Pasadena Now that it was not, quote, canceling landline service in California, and none of our California customers will lose access to voice service, end quote. However, it has filed 2 requests with the California Public Utilities Commission asking to be relieved of its carrier of last resort obligations and to remove its designation as an eligible telecommunications carrier. The impact of AT&T's proposals on Pasadena customers remains uncertain, but the city is actively engaged with the state and AT&T to monitor the situation. A decision is expected within a year. Visit cpuc.ca.gov for more information on 2 upcoming public forums on March 14th and 19th regarding AT&T's proposal. Let's welcome our guest, Joel Sheldon, the 3rd owner of Vroman's Bookstore. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Justin, for the invitation and opportunity to talk with you.
Joel Sheldon is the chair of the board of Vroman's Bookstore on Colorado Boulevard, Vroman's Hastings Ranch, and Book Soup in West Hollywood. He currently holds the controlling interest among a group of shareholders comprised of family and non-family members. He has managed the original bookstore since 1972. His family has been running the business since 1916 when his founder, Adam Clark Vroman, died and left the store to his longtime employees, including Joel's great-grandfather, Alan Sheldon. Founded in 1894, Vroman's Bookstore is a Pasadena institution. Last month, Joel announced that the 130-year-old bookstore is going up for sale. No buyer's been selected yet, but Sheldon's family and team have shepherded Vromans through numerous challenges over many decades. So we want to learn all about what's happening. Joel, tell us your thought process. Why did you decide to finally sell Vromans?
Well, I'm almost 80 years old, and I think it's about time that maybe I enjoy a little bit of sunshine. There's no family succession. I have a son and a daughter. Both had an opportunity, and it was mutual. We decided it was not for them. One is a librarian, one is an artist. They're wonderful people. That left Secession. I mean, I'm going to pass away, and I guess I don't want to leave. This is not an articulate way to put it. I don't want to leave a mess, either for the bookstore or my family. So I'm trying to simplify that, both in terms of my family and the bookstore. The second major reason was that the bookstore itself deserves new management, new energy, new ideas, and it needs them. That's why we've always been resilient and adaptive and had many different businesses, to be honest with you, over the years. It needs that energy.
And I don't know how much you can reveal, but are you in talks with any potential buyers yet? Has anyone expressed interest yet?
Sure. We've had a lot of interest. We're trying to narrow down qualified buyers, and we've talked to one or two a little more seriously, but nothing came of that. So we're still progressing in the process.
And who is the right buyer? Meaning, what would you like to see happen?
It's an easy question to answer, and yet it's not. We'd love to find a local family, group, individual that values Vromans, would be dedicated to it, has the resources to help sustain it. It should be self-sustaining. It has been self-sustaining, but it's good to have resources involved. That they'll treasure the institution for itself, understand its position in the community, Southern California, employees, how we treat people, all of those issues. We'd like it to be a local person or group.
And I don't know if you know the answer to this, but what happens if you don't find the right buyer? Is there any chance that it would be closed or not be an independent?
Well, there are really two answers to that, and I've been coached on this. One is we expect it to be sold, okay? And of course we do. The second question is never say never. I don't know what the future is. I don't know what the realities will be, maybe not just this year, but if 5 years from now. So I can't guarantee anything.
Tell us a little bit of the history of Vromans. I gave sort of the bare bones, but it has such a rich, interesting history. So tell us.
Yeah. Well, it all starts with Mr. Vroman, who came out of the Midwest actually he had been a railroad agent back there, which is where the Sheldon family originally knew him. He was my great-grandfather's best friend, and my great-uncle and great-grandfather's best friend. He came out here a little before 1894, maybe 1893, for his wife's health. Unfortunately, she passed away. He never had any children. He was a bibliophile. He loved books. There weren't many books out here in those days. I mean, we bookstores were different. I mean, he started it as a book, stationery, and watch repair store. And he became a very renowned photographer of the period. All glass plate photography, time lapse. That's a whole story all in itself. He died in 1914. and left in his estate an employee stock option plan. I mean, before there ever was such a thing. And he really said to about his 8 employees, I'll give you so much money for every year you worked and level of position, and you can take the money and go on vacation, or you can exercise stock options in the corporation. And my family was eventually able to obtain the majority of the stock, and about 4 other people did. So it's always had multi-owners. It's always had employee owners. It's done a variety of things. We did sell photo supplies until the 50s. We got into office furniture in probably the 30s through the 50s very successfully. We became the largest wholesaler of books west of the Mississippi by the 50s. We became the only school book depository in the state of California. We're probably the largest book purchaser west of the Mississippi. Had our own rail spur So there's this whole evolution of taking advantage to opportunities. And I guess being entrepreneurial, I don't think we ever thought about it as entrepreneurial. It was just, what do we, that looks like a good opportunity and we can do these things and we have the resources, so let's try them. They did buy real estate in the 50s. And then Vroman's, by itself, we had great book people. I mean, not necessarily the Sheldons, by the way. I mean, we all love books, we all read. But we've known some people who it seemed like they knew every title and every era and the whole thing. Of course, that still was the foundation. The books was the kind of the target, and then we spun all these other things around them. All of those have closed. All of the ancillary businesses have closed because the world changed, and all of a sudden there were office furniture stores, not just our second floor. We started autographing probably in 1916. We have a leather book I haven't seen for a while. John Muir was a friend, and we have his autograph, and a number of people. After the war, we did book and author luncheons, where we'd get 500 people to sit down at the old Huntington Hotel, mostly ladies, with their social environment and responses. And we'd have 6 authors, and that was a big deal, and we had lots of autographings. Eventually in the, I'm going to say the 90s, 80s, 2-person families working, that no longer attracted 500 people. So all of a sudden, one day, we kind of looked at each other and said, well, why don't we try one in store? And the first one was Sophia Loren. And I was working the floor in those days. I was in charge of the thing. And I mean, we were ill-prepared to handle that. It was kind of like ill-prepared to handle a pandemic. And now it's just, I don't want to say it's a lifesaver, but it's a very important part of what we're able to do. Oh, yeah. It's really our marketing promotion stuff. We always did advertising. I've been in charge of advertising, and we were pretty sophisticated about it. But we couldn't do it in today's world for a variety of reasons. It's too expensive in the Super Bowl and things like that. And we got through a depression. We got through a world war. We got through 2 world wars. We got through pandemics. We had stories of delivering books to Manzanar. True stories. George Takei has verified that and actually wrote I can't remember the name of it, the title or the format name, but a book in which he remembers it and says that did occur. All kinds of things like that. We got into computers early because we had these other things. Anyway, it has this.
President Carter's done an event.
Oh, yeah.
Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
Sure.
Jonathan Lethem. Just about every author I could think of, including myself. My book launch was there. The author events has definitely been part of what builds that community that Vroman's is known for.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
And you mentioned the pandemic. Tell us about how that changed the store. Or I remember you put out a call at the time for the community. Support us, support local businesses. We need you right now. Did the community respond to that call? How did that play out?
Oh, yes. We got swamped. We really didn't anticipate the level of response. I certainly didn't. We couldn't handle the business, candidly, and those who waited and waited and waited for books that they ordered from us probably remember it. And we did everything we could, but the pandemic was really tough. You couldn't bring people into work. They changed the rules all the time. It was clear, and this is the truth, that without the PPP monies, and there's another program called the Earned Retention Credit, we probably would not have survived. And we had good resources. I mean, we were a stable, solid business, but you don't go a year and a half with all the rules changing and you can't be open. And then you can only be open 25% of the way, and you can only have so many people in your store. I mean, those are absolute killers as far as I'm concerned. I've never seen anything like it, of course.
And what about Amazon's influence and other online booksellers? Did that impact the business?
Well, it always has. It has. I remember, I think it was 1994 that started. And I've watched them ever since. We've been aware of them ever since. The Booksellers Association's aware of them, and we all used to talk about it. The thing that kind of interested me was why he chose Amazon. Why not Amazon Books? Well, I thought even then, Amazon is big. You know, he's doing something else. He's a very smart guy. I've met him once, but I don't know anything about him really. But I do know he's a very smart guy, even in the way he approached the rollout of Amazon and changing to the internet.
And you're the third generation of your family that's run it.
Yeah.
Is it bittersweet for you to now be selling it?
Sure. In fact, I don't quite know how I'm really going to feel. Now, I've closed divisions. I closed my father's division, which is where I started. And I remember walking through the empty building going, "Oh, this is tough." Right now, I'm very much into a project mode. You know, this is the goal. How do we organize it? Who does it? How do we collect information? How do we filter it? And then we'll get into the components of, and I don't like to use the word deal, but this is a deal. You know, it's like buying a house. Right. The other side will say, you know, your air conditioning needs replacing, and I'm not going to pay for that. And there'll be all those things. That won't be fun. I don't enjoy those kinds of negotiations, but I've been through them before, and maybe I'll go through them again when I sell my house.
What does Vroman's mean to you, and what does it mean to Pasadena?
That's a tough one for me to answer. First of all, I was on the younger side of this in the 70s, and I actually had to study family transitions because it was complex. I had a father, and I'll call them two uncles. You have aunts, you have a grandmother, you have whatever. These are all reasons that, well, that's a different story too. One of the things that I came away from after studying about this was that not so important that the younger generation works in the store since 5 years old or swept the floor. It's much more important that the breadwinner come home and express, not necessarily, I mean, it's overt, but it's not focused, how much they enjoy what they do, their business. And I look back and I realize that was certainly the case with my father. He thought it was fun, and they had fun, and they had great friends of their generation in these various positions. I have great memories of that, and having grown up with Vromans, I've never quite appreciated, to be honest, I've never quite appreciated its standing in the community. I'm aware of it, but this process that I'm going through now sometimes it blows me away what people say, think, the responses we've gotten. I don't quite know why it's a centerpiece in the community. All we did was try to run a good business and sell books and give people what they wanted. I guess all I can say is it worked. And I have to also admit that I've now done it for 45 years. I mean, I retained that and got us through a bunch of stuff. But it's hard for me to characterize it. Maybe I'm too close to it. I almost get embarrassed sometimes when people say various things. But it's an important part of the community. There's no question. I mean, I understand it for more reasons than just the book selling, to be honest with you. My father's and uncle's involvement almost ran, I won't say more, to the community public side, Chamber of Commerce, city planning, helping form the Pasadena Beautiful Association. Or my father was tone deaf. He was with the Pasadena Symphony. They had this influence in all these community groups, probably between me and them, at least 100. And so you interwove yourself with the community. And that's unusual, even for book selling. Most owners don't have that kind of time, I guess. I didn't ever think I was going to be in the business, didn't take an economics course, didn't take an accounting course. I was going to be a teacher. And then I got in the business, and I had to learn about a little bit of that stuff. And one day at 27 years old, I said, I need to know about depreciation. And then I thought, well, wait, there's a book down in the business department, which I'd never been in. I mean, I didn't think about business as a young person. And I go down and I go through that section. I found that book. It was a classic textbook. I found it easy to read. I understood a lot of it because I had been exposed to it now. And that's when I realized the value of the books, actually. And it's a strange revelation at 27, I have to admit, but it was like it just hit me. Boom. Wow.
Vroman's is certainly a special place, obviously a Pasadena institution. Thank you for shepherding it all these years. And I know just about everybody wants to see it continue to be an independent bookstore and a community gathering place, because it's meant so much to Pasadena for so long. So thank you for coming on the show and talking to us about it, and best of luck as you go through that.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you very much. You bet.
Before we go, here is this month in Pasadena history. It was this month in 1958 when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. first visited Pasadena. When he was 29 years old, the Leaders of America program invited him to speak at Caltech on February 25th, 1958. He delivered 2 speeches that day entitled A Great Time to Be Alive and Facing the Challenges of a New Age. The following day, he delivered a 3rd speech entitled Progress in Race Relations. In those speeches, he urged students to, quote, rise above the narrow confines of individual concerns to the broad concerns of all humanity. The oppressed peoples of the world are coming through the wilderness of adjustment and into the promised land of liberty. The older order of segregation is passing away, and a new order of justice and freedom is gradually coming into being, end quote. He added that the political and social tensions at the time were, quote, the usual pains that accompany the birth of anything new. Thank you all so much for joining me for this episode of Pasadena Month. Tune in every 4th Friday of the month at 5 p.m. Learn more at pasadenamedia.org and justindouglaschapman.com. Drop me a line at jchapman@cityofpasadena.net. We'll see you next week.